and welcome to Gardening with the Gardeners, a podcast where we discuss our favorite plants, gardens, landscape design, and all things horticulture, with just a touch of our crazy homestead lifestyle thrown in.
I'm one of your hosts, Matthew Boone Gardner, a horticulturalist, landscape designer, and fourth-generation owner-operator of Boone Gardner Landscape.
And I'm Hope Gardner, Matt's wife, a horticulturalist with our local county extension office, as well as a landscape designer with a family business. And together, we make up Gardening with the Gardeners. Dun, dun, dun. We are back.
Yeah. May have been wondering where we went.
It's been busy.
It's been spring on many levels.
Yes, it has been.
So this is episode 16 before we get going, but we'll just kind of do a little.
And we are going to talk about one of my. I'm going to put on one of my top 10 favorite.
Oh yeah, that's one of your top 10s, and mine too. Yeah. And I always, because you got me in. I mean, I've always appreciated them, but you got me into them even more so. And
it's not dahlias.
Yeah, pretty peonies.
Yes, peonies.
Perfect peonies.
Peonies. People say, different ways.
Exactly.
So, but let's first, let me ask you, what's been going on at the farm?
It's been a little chaotic.
Yes, it has been.
Hopefully, I get my boot off my broken toe this week. We'll see. That's a follow-up.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Get back to that.
We had some amazing spring rains.
Oh my gosh!
Flooded the basement
it was
again.
Like a drought for a while there, and we were praying for rain. Then when we finally got, what we were asking for, and like you said, we had water in the basement. It was that one night was an absolute deluge.
It was crazy.
That's when we started getting all those warnings. They were like flash flood warnings. This is actually danger. Like what did they say? Danger. Like, I mean, it was a more heightened alarm than normal. I forget. But,
they like to scare the living tar out of us.
Yeah, but it was intense. So the peacocks are on the move, like we said. It was kind of funny. It's like I always talk about a love-hate relationship with our peacocks.
Some days it's more.
One minute they drive me crazy, and then I'm like, and all of a sudden I saw how many I see? 3 of them, 5. That's right, it was 5. 5 of them were. I was coming back from
LaGrange.
Yeah, I think
from town,
from church, from choir singer or something. I don't know what it was. It was that night.
Yeah, it was. It was a Wednesday night.
And I was coming back, and I saw one of our peacocks, and I was like, oh, there's 4 other ones, and they're just walking down the road. I was trying to guide them back. They were actually kind of headed towards our place, but it was probably maybe a quarter mile, maybe not quite. Well, maybe not quite that far, but they're pretty far away.
Oh, I would say evidently. Yeah, I mean.
But it was another farm, a big farm on both sides, and they're walking down the road, and they actually were kind of heading our direction, so I was like trying to kind of guide them with my truck, which we've done before. You kind of escort them, but no way I was going to get out with this boot on my foot and try to chase them. And then, of course, they decided to veer off to the one side and then went into this farm pasture, and I was like, there's no way. So I just gave up. You kind of have to let them go, do their thing.
Well, the crazy thing is, I'm probably 15, 20 minutes behind you.
And then you saw them.
And I'm heading down home, and I turn off one road onto our small country road. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, what is that? It's 5 of our peacocks. And so I do the same thing. Slow down. I even put my caution lights on.
Oh, yeah. I had the caution lights on for a while, and I had a parade of like 3 cars behind me. I forgot to mention that, too. I had a parade of like 3 cars behind me.
Luckily enough, I didn't. But it was getting dark, and, of course, they roost up in the trees. So, pulling our road.
It was dusk when you came home. Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
And so the crazy thing is they roost up in the trees. And I'm like, okay, just get them home. Just get them home. Come on. And I've got one that is slower than the other 4. And she's like just really standing like right in front of my car. And so finally one of the front ones ends up, I guess, getting tired of waiting for this one. And she jumps up into the tree that overhangs the road. And so all 5 of them just roost up in the trees. And I'm like, well.
At least they're safe.
Yep, they're off the ground.
And then so that happened. And then we didn't see them for like 2 or 3 days.
No, I don't think it was that long.
It was at least 2 days.
Okay,
it was at least 2 days. And I was like, oh, shoot, man, because we have this, one of them is a really unusual kind of, I keep calling her blonde, but she's this kind of golden color, really. Mm-hmm. I don't know, the peahen. Not your normal colors of the other ones.
No, she's real pale. She almost looks like khaki pants.
Yeah, but kind of golden cats. It's pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of pretty. It's unusual looking. And that was one of them, so I was like, oh, man. And I literally thought because sometimes they just kind of move around like bees do.
So, and I think I've mentioned before, when we very first moved out here, we built this huge area for the peacocks to live in, and it was going to be a net over top of it, and there's netted in, and they got out, and so we did try to keep them contained in the property. Once they figure out where home is, they'll stick around here, but this time of year they do, because they're territorial, they will actually kind of venture out.
Well, that's how we got so many, because we had 2 or 3 that showed up.
We had 3.
And we didn't know who they belonged to. Had no way of finding out, and they just made this home.
They were juvenile, and I think I told this story last week. They were juvenile peacocks, and they hadn't colored up yet.
Yeah,
and so I thought they were wild turkeys. And so, yeah. So we were without 5 of the peahens last week for a couple days.
Then they decided to show up.
And then, they just came back home.
So now it's peacock madness again.
Yes.
And going off, the one male keeps the king male that we call Lord Grantham keeps crying out in the middle of the night every 5 seconds and keeping you awake right outside our oak tree. So yeah.
Not my favorite time of year with the peacocks, but yeah, they're here.
You've got things going in the greenhouse more and more. You got the other little greenhouse set up.
I did. I did that last weekend, and that was really fun, all by myself.
One of our guys down the street worked on our tiller, and we thought we had our tiller back, and you've got 3/4 of that. Normally I do that for you, but you were tilling the vegetable garden. So
Saturday, I had a little bit of garden frustration. So I was like, I need to burn off some of this energy. And I decided that it was a really good time. Our vegetable garden is in 4 quadrants, and I was going to till the 4 areas. And I did really good. I got 3 of them done. I started the 4th, and daggone it if I didn't break the tiller again.
So we have
one.
And I
say I break it. I don't know that I really necessarily did anything, but it broke while I was.
When you say garden frustration, I won't go into any kind of detail, but anybody can appreciate it. If a teenage daughter who's trying to decide college, we'll leave it at that. So it's been kind of traumatic and interesting, and
here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes. So
you all that have college age kids or older know exactly what we're talking about. So
I'm sure. So what
anything
else?
I mean, just chaos. I mean, we've been busy. Landscape's going great. Lots of awesome clients as always. Yeah. I mean, things are good. So
it's spring.
I know. Crane's taking his finals this week at UK, and he'll be back working on the cruise next week.
Yeah, he's going to start back on Monday.
Yeah.
He'll be on the job.
Maybe we'll have to have him on the podcast.
I've already warned him.
Yeah,
I said, get ready. You're doing it this summer. And he was like,
Exactly.
So, yep. Well, he has to. He's a gardener.
So we were going to talk about peonies.
Yes, we are.
And how awesome they are and all the wonderful things about them and how to take care of them.
I love peonies so much. I had pink ones in my bridal bouquet.
Yes, you did. And that was a beautiful bouquet. And that's probably, and ever since then, we started growing them a lot in our old gardens, and I just, you really have gotten me. It's funny because I joked I've always been kind of a woody, into woody ornamentals, like trees and shrubs. But you really got me in like iris and peonies both. I've like come to a big appreciation of both of those.
Yes.
And the dahlias, of course.
Of course, you have to. No, the pink peonies that were in my bridal bouquet actually came out of my mom's.
That was a spectacular bouquet.
It was.
Your friend Missy did that?
Yeah. My mom's friend Missy. And the peonies themselves were out of my mom's yard. So, yeah, they're very special.
You made a bouquet this weekend for her as reminiscent of that. That's why it looks so familiar now.
Yes. So we go to my mom and dad's for Sunday dinner, family dinner, and I took my mom a huge bouquet of different peonies from around our farm. I can't even remember how many different.
And then you had some baptisia blooms stuck in there.
Yes. And for height, I did some
baptisia.
Yeah, that
Not
word.
Bacteria.
Baptisia. For some height, and then I did some variegated hostas around the bottom.
It was quite lovely.
It was a sweet little bouquet.
Well, and you were just telling me a little quick story today about peony. It was just kind of funny because we've been trying to record this We've been trying to record this peony podcast for literally a week. So apologize for being a week and a half, right? Yeah, and then, of course it's Derby. We didn't talk about that. It's also Derby. We just had Derby.
Yes.
We actually spent our Derby in the garden.
Yes, fighting a rototillers. So, yes, there is a garden club out of the extension office. And so periodically we all have monthly meetings, and then
tours.
Yeah, we get to do a garden tour. And so we just met a lady named Kim who comes to our Dahlia Club. And she just mentioned that she has a ton of peonies that were in bloom. So president of the club arranged for us to take or the garden club to take a quick tour of her peony collection. And I will say they're all in her front yard. And it was one of the most spectacular peony, just residential peony collections that I've seen in a really, really long time. I know Whitehall in Louisville has an amazing peony collection, but this is just a general homeowner.
That's what's so cool. I mean, about gardens in general. You never know what somebody might have. Just a random normal person might have this most spectacular collection,
Oh my gosh.
and you're like, "Whoa, I didn't know this was here."
And I mean, the sheer quantity that are blooming in her yard were just amazing. But then you start looking at them individually, and her collection is the colors and the shapes and the sizes and the varieties. I asked her, and she said that she's really only been collecting for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So as spectacular as it was, it's not like she's been a gardener her whole life. But this collection just started about 10 years ago. So I was like, oh, so after I get on my dahlias, maybe I should start collecting more peonies.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, peonies, I mean, they're a great, ancient flower, long-lived perennial that do great in our zone.
Mm-hmm.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about planting and care. We'll do a little bit of peony history.
Yeah, you've got to get that history in there.
Global origins if you want to, all the different types to grow, how to plant them properly, and how to maintain for them in our conditions.
Yeah. So
Plus,
we're going to cover a whole lot.
You're going to want to probably talk about,
we might hit a
common
couple
problems,
of the, leave all the icky stuff to me. But some of the pests and diseases. So we can go over a lot of stuff about peonies. So it's not just your grandmother's flower.
No, not at all. So peonies have been cultivated for over 2,000 years, particularly in China, where they were originally valued as medicinal plants. The roots of species like Peony lactiflora were widely used in traditional medicine across China, Korea, and Japan.
I have to say that when you look at peonies, I don't initially think of medicinal plants because we've gotten so used to the beauty of them.
Oh, yeah. But they were used for all kinds of things. We're going to go, yeah.
Even culinary.
They weren't just medicinal. They were culinary, used in cooking. Ancient Chinese text describes petals being used in flavoring food, brewed into teas or added to drinks and desserts. By the 6th and 7th centuries, ornamental varieties were being selected. And during the Tang Dynasty, peonies became symbols of wealth, honor, and prestige. And they were grown in all the imperial gardens, which makes sense whenever you see ancient Asian art. There's tons of peony references in all those, and of course they're using all the gardens and artwork and everything else. By the 10th century, cultivation spread widely across China, and the city of Luoyang became the center of peony culture, a role it still holds today with annual festivals and research programs. A second major cultivation center later developed in Heizing during the Qing Dynasty. I'm probably massacring this Chinese, but, we'll see.
Just do the best you can.
Peonies spread to Japan before the 10th century where extensive breeding occurred. That's really where it kind of started to take off. So that's between the Edo and early Showa periods. And they started producing many of the forms and kind of refinements of these different peonies through self-pollination and crossbreeding. In Europe, the peonies were introduced later on in the 15th century, initially used for medicinal use, which is interesting, again, to think about that. And then ornamental breeding accelerated during the 19th century, especially in France, the United Kingdom, where breeders like Victor Lemon developed many classic varieties still grown today.
So now the tree peonies, they weren't introduced into Europe until the late 1700s. And they were planted in botanical gardens like Kew.
Yeah, Kew Gardens really kind of made those famous in the Western world.
Well, they were a big proponent of the plant collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of things started during that time period in Kew.
So today the peonies are grown, obviously, worldwide. The Netherlands produces around 50 million stems annually. I mean, because the Dutch always do flowers right, whether it's tulips, the Aalsmeer flower auction, all that spectacular.
Well, that Sarah Bernhardt is that pink variety that we think of so much, that big fluffy pink.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one I think that that's grown primarily in the Netherlands.
That's the massive portion of that 50 million stems.
But did you know that even Alaska has become a unique producer because they have such a long summer daylight that they can really get those extended blooms.
Absolutely.
So who would have ever thought that Alaska? But I think that's really cool.
Well, you think about it, because Well, Roy Clem back in the day bred all those peonies and had that Sun Sparrow nursery. I think it was Wisconsin or somewhere like that. I can't remember where it was. That's horrible, but amazing collection and breeders back then.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So peonies belong to the genus Paeonia, which just sounds like peony, Paeonia, and they occur in temperate and cold regions across all the northern hemisphere. So, and they're really widespread. That's what's kind of interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, there's three primary types of the peonies. You've got the herbaceous, you've got
well, you got the Eurasian herbaceous, and then the Asian species, and then the North American species.
which I have to admit, I'm not sure that I really knew that there were two native species to North America. I thought that was kind of interesting. They're
Peony brownii and Peony californica.
Well, and that's because I guess they're out west more in that drier mountainous environment.
They're very different than
much
our
different.
normal lactiflora with a big
than the herbaceous that we're more accustomed to. But then we also have the woody peonies, which are really cool. And then kind of what I think is the newer, and then maybe it's just because it's more new to me, but those new crosses. Those ethos that
they're not
cross,
new, but they're
new to me, I guess. But they're the cross between the herbaceous peonies and the tree peonies.
Well, let's go back for that second. So, peonies involved in climates with cold winters,
yes,
seasonal dormancy, and well-drained soils. Keys, well-drained soils. And that's that's what we have here. If you're careful now, so if you have a wet spot, it's not going to be happy here in Louisville.
No.
The types of peonies like we were talking about, we kind of got a little bit in the weeds there, but herbaceous peonies are the ones you think of the most right away. They obviously are perennial. They're going to come up. They're going to die to the ground every year in the fall, then regrowth from underground, like the crown.
Eyes. They have eyes. Like
we'll come back up from that each spring.
Yep. And then your tree peonies, they'll go dormant in the winter, but they have a woody stem.
They're just like
so they're going to stay above ground.
Yeah, it's like a woody, like a little. That's what
like
I call tree. Yeah,
yeah,
tree peony.
Now they're bigger than those herbaceous perennials, but they're not like a tree that we think of.
They're more like a shrub, like you're saying, and they bloom earlier and often kind of a structural shrub-like presence as opposed to like your classic peony with that dark. Kind of, it still has that foliage, and a lot of times it's more cut leaf and whatever, but it's just different looking, obviously.
Yes.
And then what you were alluding to was the intersectional hybrids or the Ito peonies.
They were developed in 1940
by Tochi Ito.
Yes. And the nice thing is that it kind of took the best traits of both parents. So it does die back like the herbaceous,
but it has strong stems like the tree peonies.
Yes. So you don't have to
stake
them as much. Now, maybe just a little bit, but not.
But that is one bad thing about the traditional peonies, the herbaceous ones. That's why they have peony cages that you sit on, because a lot of times they will get blown over in storms and stuff.
But one of the nice things is the ethos has a much larger bloom, and they bloom for a longer period of time. And they're starting to show a little bit more resistance to some of those diseases that we see with the garden peonies that we're so accustomed to.
I guess the early Ito varieties included like Yellow Crown and Yellow Emperor.
Yes. And I think the neat thing is that those are yellow, whereas in that herbaceous, you don't get a lot of that yellow. You get the pinks, the whites, the deep, deep pinks. But I don't know that in the herbaceous that you get a lot of yellow. So when they crossed with
just
that
tree, yellow center.
Just the yellow, yes.
Yeah.
Not the petals.
Yeah.
So that was kind of new, and that was really exciting.
It's really pretty. They're spectacular.
And the nice thing for home gardeners is that the prices come down a little bit on those.
You just got another peony sitting on our steps.
I did. It's an ethos also.
It is an Ito? It's a tree.
Yes.
So it's okay.
So it's the hybrid.
Because you've got a couple of tree peonies and
nope, I have hybrids.
They're all Itos or hybrids?
Well, I've got a lot of the garden peonies, and then I've got 2 of the Ethos, and then I just got a 3rd.
Gotcha.
So far. We'll see what happens.
So hopefully that makes sense, the types of peonies there. Basically herbaceous, woody, and then the interbred hybrid between the two.
Yep.
How to plant peonies. You want to talk about that?
I would love to. So like we mentioned earlier, peonies have those eyes.
Like potatoes.
Yes, exactly. And so when you plant those, you want to make sure that you dig a hole that's wide and not really as deep. because you don't want those eyes to go more than 2 inches below the soil surface.
And if you go too deep, which I've had so many clients make this mistake, and this is when we used to sell peonies in the garden center, this is the number one thing: do not plant them too deep because you will not get blooming.
They will not bloom.
And whenever Fred Wishy back in the day, or Cindy Sullivan, or anybody, or even back when I was on Wave 3, they'd say, "Why's my peony not blooming?" I was like, "How deep is it? If you plant, raise it up," and sure enough, a lot of times it would bloom better.
Yes, and you do want to give them adequate space. You want to give them about 3 to 4 feet apart. You don't want them touching because you really want good air movement around them. They do have a tendency of getting powdery mildew,
especially in Kentucky.
Yes,
just like our roses
and a couple other diseases. But they have found that if you let air move around them, it drives the foliage off quicker, and they seem to be less likely to get
be happier.
Yes, those diseases.
And timing, you want to plant them in the fall, ideally.
Ideally, it is in the
September,
fall.
October, yeah.
Now,
I mean,
of
but
course,
you've got,
like you said, I have one on the front porch getting ready to be planted.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all.
And the neat thing about, I think, really all peonies is you don't have to divide them.
And a lot of times, if you're planting them in the fall, it's because you're just getting the
bare root.
Yeah, instead of you have the whole plant, so you're planting it like a perennial. So so that's what we're talking about with the fall.
But you would divide those in the fall, like we just said, and then you don't have to divide them. It's not like a regular herbaceous perennial where you need to divide them every 3 to 5 years. They can last 50 years and never be divided.
We've seen them
however,
on old farmhouses and stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
If they get too big for an area, or you want to share them with friends, you can dig them and plant break them apart so that you have 3 to 5 eyes on a cluster.
Just like your dahlias, make sure you have
very
those.
much. Yep. And then divide those and plant them again. And again, you don't want to plant them super deep. So
you don't want to plant them deep,
and
you've got to make sure, like we talked about before, it's a well-drained soil.
Very well drained, fertile
soil. So if we got our bad clay, if you got a place that's too much clay, they're actually, I mean, all this is very true, but they're actually pretty forgiving. I mean, and sometimes, I mean, not with not the drainage issue, but as far as you don't have to have perfect soil, as far as,
No, I mean, you can add some organic matter to it if you want. I wouldn't amend it real heavily because you want to make sure that those roots do go out into the soil, the native soil. But really key is they really want 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and that's just to help them have enough energy to produce buds for the next year.
And the ironic thing is, if you can do, I mean, we say full sun usually, and that is usually best, but if you actually can do that 6 to 8 hours, then get a little bit of shade in the afternoon, that is the best. Now, it's a little hard to do.
Morning sun,
that's kind of hard to do.
Shade.
That's why some of ours that are kind of in that one garden or protected by the garage, they do really well, but you got to be careful. We talked about well-drained, fertile soil, good air circulation, talked about all that.
Okay, so when you plant them in the fall, you really want to be careful and make sure that in like November, so after they've already gone dormant, you want to apply about 4 to 6 inches of mulch around them so that newly planted peonies, it's not going to heave when that freezing and thawing in the winter. So that's another good thing that you want to make sure and think about with newly planted peonies, to go ahead and give them a little extra protection.
Something we usually forget to do, but you stake them early if you want them staked, especially if you've had a peony that keeps flopping over each year. Put those peony cages out before it's emerging or when it's first emerging.
When it first emerges,
and it'll grow right through that cage. It'll be a lot easier.
And then you don't see the cages.
Yeah. Or you get the ones that you can like lock in from the sides, and those work well too. But the peony cages that sit on that, those are really good. Yeah.
Yes, because they're you spread out the weight of those peonies when you go up through like the cages that have the kind of, not really a mesh, but
it's oversized mesh basically.
Yes. Instead of just the rings. So, yep, that's some ideas on those. Now, there's a lot of people that get a little bit upset when they bring peony blooms in the house because there always seems to be little bitty ants.
Well, and if you watch your peonies, they have the coolest. I'm almost as fascinated with the peony bud before where it's opened as I am the bloom itself, because it's just that whole process. And you can get online and watch this on YouTube. They'll have like a
slow motion.
No, just the opposite, where it's like a time lapse
yes,
photography video of a peony opening. It is spectacular. but the buds are so fat and it's just these awesome big juicy like
Balls.
They're amazing looking. But if you go out there, you'll see ants usually almost always crawling around, and people get very alarmed about this. You have questions at the office. I've had questions at the garden center, and people are like, "Oh, why is there ants on my peony?" And they get all freaked out. They think they need to spray them or do that. But the peony, I've always heard there's some controversy about this, whether it's really true or not. But I always heard it was actually a beneficial thing because they do exude a little bit of sap, and I heard that the ants kind of go in there and eat that sap. They don't hurt the plant itself.
They do not do any damage.
They don't
to
do
the
any
bud or
damage,
flowers.
and that they actually kind of help that. Now, some people, recently saw some things online said they really don't do anything to actually affect that process from a biological or botanical standpoint. But it almost seems a little bit symbiotic because they do it almost every time. So
Every single year, there's always little ants. You can take the flowers inside. Just soak them in water to try to get the ants off. Just be careful.
I'm always getting on you because you'll bring them in. I'm like, make sure the ants are not on the counter.
You can't.
They are. That is one drawback. But you can usually kind of check them outside and kind of knock them off and stuff. But if you see,
definitely outweighs a little ant crawling across the
yeah,
counter.
and if you see ants on your peony buds, like I said, do not worry about it. They're just eating that little nectar that's exuded from the buds. They give us a little. So we talked about the growing tips.
Yes, we did.
And all that. So we should probably discuss flower forms. We talked about the overall types of plants, but there's actually several distinct forms.
There are, and I think people get in their head one visual that they have of the flower, and that's that great big the double. And there's some of the most beautiful other flower forms.
They kind of run the gamut. Yeah,
they do, because we have one that's a hot pink with a bright yellow center, and it's a single, and those petals look like almost crepe paper.
They do look like
so
that's
thin, and they're beautiful.
Great description. That's exactly what they look like. So the single has 1 or 2 rows of petals in a visible center, like you're saying.
That bright yellow, yeah,
It's spectacular.
So if you imagine a white one, it looks like a fried egg sunny side up. It's white with that big yellow center, and then the one
prettier,
that we
but
have,
yeah.
Well,
no, it's a good.
okay.
I'm teasing you. It's fun.
And then we have one that is almost like a raspberry pink with that big yellow center. And so, I mean, those are really spectacular, and I don't think people really give them enough credit as a peony.
Yeah. So you have the Japanese, which are modified stamens. They have a kind of a unique center.
They
kind
do.
of that even more dramatic in there. The anemone types are petal-like center structures. Semi-doubles is a mix of petals and stamens. You talked about doubles, which are just dense, full, massive blooms.
And then we have the bomb.
The bomb. Drop the bomb. Large, rounded centers.
So it almost looks like you have the petals, and then somebody just plopped a big
dollop of ice cream.
Yeah,
it looks like
does,
that.
but they're full of petals.
Yeah, it's really cool looking.
So you can tell, there's so many different flower forms that it just runs the gamut of how many peonies I really need to put in my yard.
Yeah, you could really. I mean, that's why there's peony clubs oh
my gosh, yes.
You could really get into it like you do with your dahlias or anything else. Should we talk about some of the best known varieties just briefly?
Well, we did kind of
talk about
already
Sarah
mention.
Bernhardt.
Yes, that's the soft shell pink that was in the wedding bouquet.
Fully double.
Yep.
Strong fragrance.
It does.
Which you forget. I mean, sometimes you forget the peonies do have it's not. Some smell, some don't. Some have a lot. It's like your dad last night was trying to smell on them, and it's like you're like, smell this one, because
because I did have 2 of the Sarah Bernhardt flowers in that bouquet for my mom, and those are really the only 2 that you could smell. That one typically blooms later, so I've just had those 2 blooms because they've just started here, and really that's the variety that I think so many in the Netherlands, we talked about how many millions they grow.
I think and
that's primarily the variety I believe that
well, the average person, when they think of a peony, they probably think of that variety because that, like you said, it dominates the marketplace, and it's probably right.
Yes,
when you say
most definitely.
Festiva Maxima, that's an old classic, man. We had that at the garden center since I was
It's that white with the little red flecks.
Mm-hmm. That's a real classic.
And it's kind of that early to mid-season.
It's very reliable. That's why you see it everywhere. And it's fragrant as well.
It is.
The Duchess de Nemours.
Do we
have? I can't remember that. We have that one or not. I don't think we do.
I don't think we have that one.
That's pretty too. And these are all pretty, I want to say.
I mean, you can't go wrong with any of the peonies.
The Duchess has those creamy white blooms.
Yes.
It's a very elegant, classic form.
And then we have Carl
Rosenfeld.
He is going to be a really deep red, and so that's a really bold presence.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be a late season, so you can really extend. And I think that you can get about 6 to 8 weeks of blooms if you start with some of the early ones and extend it all the way with the late ones. So it's not just a real quick, 2 weeks of peony blooms. You can time it so that you can have almost 8 weeks of peony blooms.
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, that's really cool. And then most of those are the peony lactophora types, and they're known for their longevity and reliability. And like you said, they will live, a long time in a garden.
Now we have a new one, and we had this one at the garden center, so we have several here around the farm. But Coral Charm hit the market, and it hit it hard. Coral Charm is a really pretty. It's a semi-double, and it's bright coral, and then as it opens, it kind of fades to a really soft peach.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit, I planted
that color transformation is cool. It's really
and there's
pretty.
some really neat color transformations when you start looking at getting really seriously in the details of these peonies. But I planted a Coral Charm next to the Baptisias because they usually bloom around the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and that coral color with that bright purple of the Baptisias is a really good combination.
It's lovely.
Yes,
and you got the pink Hawaiian coral,
and that's a little bit brighter coral pink.
Mm-hmm. It's early bloomer as well,
Mm-hmm.
upright growth.
And we talked a little bit about
the Ito hybrids.
Yes,
so
and
like
so
Bartzella.
Bartzella is one. That's the new.
That's the large.
variety
You
that I
keep saying
have.
new. Well, new for you. But
New for me. That's the one I have on the front porch that we're getting ready to plant.
Yeah, that's cool because it's got those really large yellow blooms we were talking about. They're so unique.
And no staking is needed,
Strong,
which is nice.
holds itself up, and it's a long bloom period. They
Yes.
really are cool. Sometimes I almost think those tree peonies sometimes look like flower bonsais. Like sometimes that wood can get kind of gnarly looking, and they have these amazing blooms just sticking on them.
It does. Yes, it does. Another ethos that's really, really cool, and I don't have one yet, is that
Louise.
Cora Luis, and that's going to be kind of that white. They call it a white petal, but it almost has, I think, a little bit of a lavendery pink tinge of it, but because it goes down to that real purple center. And so that contrast is really, really neat. So I'm going to look for one of those to add to our garden, I think, this year. And it's a mid-season.
So we talked about extending the bloom time. You already mentioned that, but yeah, if you can plant early, mid, and late varieties, you can achieve 4 to 6, maybe 8 weeks of bloom and kind of really push that out, which is really quite fun and nice.
It is.
So I guess we've talked about a few varieties, how to care for them, where to plant them. We probably should talk about, unfortunately, pest and disease a little bit.
Well, I
common
think,
problems.
Yeah, it's common problems.
I mean, they're tough. Peonies are very tough, and I don't think people forget how tough they are. But there's a few things you need to watch out for.
There are. And, I think any time that we have, a really wet spring, we have a tendency of seeing some of, more of those diseases and pests with them. One of the common one, and people really don't know about, is when you have those blackened stems and then the buds just rot. And this really occurs when you've got that, cold, wet conditions in our springs. And that's a botrytis. It's a blight.
Botrytis blight.
And really with that, you want that good airflow.
It's really common. I mean, you see it like a lot. Yeah.
It is. And you really, really, really want to clean up any of that leaf debris or litter at the end of the year, because you don't want that sitting in the soil and just kind of being harbored.
Well,
right
those spores
there.
they'll continue to
Yeah, it harbors right in all of that.
Good sanitation is going to prevent all these diseases. And we mentioned earlier, before I forget, because it's probably the number one. And honestly, I almost feel like when I tell my clients, I'm like, it's just something you live with. But powdery mildew.
Oh yeah.
Especially late in the season, because they'll usually bloom. They'll look great. The foliage will look great for a while, because the peony foliage can be quite lovely. It's actually once they're done blooming, I actually enjoy the foliage too as a nice filler in the garden, because it can be really pretty foliage. But a lot of times we get our humid late summers.
That's what gets us.
And sure enough, that peony gets that powdery mildew. And people a lot of times are like, oh, do I need a treat? You can, but by the time you see it, it's already too late to worry about a couple of fungicides, because you want to be preventative.
It would have to be a preventative. So if you know that location always gets powdery mildew, then you do it as a preventative. But once you see it, it's already there. There's no point.
And then it's just a matter of letting the peony run its course. The foliage will die back, and then you'll cut it back in the fall. And then just like you said, good sanitation, clean all that up, and you start again next year. But I mean, almost a lot of our peonies get the powdery mildew, and it's just something to deal with.
Well, and another disease that they always get is that leaf spot.
Oh yeah,
And that's another
peony
fungus.
measles, I guess they call
They
it.
call it peony measles, yep. And that's just when they get those dark spots on the leaf. And it's primarily cosmetic. It's not going to hurt anything, but you can just cut out that damaged foliage.
Oh yeah.
Just to kind of clean them up a little bit. And really what you want to do is, if it's not a good location, then you want to maybe move that peony so that you are in an area that has more sunlight and better air movement.
And just know that peonies can take a little while to get established in an area. So if you do have to move it, that was one thing we always were really careful to tell people is like, make sure, just be prepared. It may take a couple of years to kind of fully recuperate, I think, sometimes.
Well, because you're cutting the roots
Yeah.
when you move them, typically. And so once they get reestablished and they get those roots, back, in solid ground, then they're going to have that energy to produce the buds.
Yeah, they may take a little while to reestablish, but then they will bloom for decades once they're settled in their little place.
Yes. So
root rot, obviously, any plant can get root rot, but that's
well-drained soil.
Yeah, back to well-drained soils. I mean, that's
Good air
kind of
movement.
critical for everything. I guess that, insects, we talked about ants. The ants are totally harmless. Don't worry about that. They're just attracted to the little nectar that comes off the buds.
The thrips.
Those
they can just cause a little bit of distortion.
They
in the
can
flower.
cause, but a lot of times they'll get in there and kind of make that, when that bud opens up, they'll kind of be kind of weird looking. I think we had although I think that was more like some little critter ate that one bud we had.
And then, of course, if we have a bad Japanese beetle year, they can get hit by
Japanese beetles
beetle.
are so interesting now. It's so variable how they hit. It seems like they were more widespread when like younger back in the day. When I was younger back in the day, it seemed like they were everywhere, and now it's real spotty. So you never know if you're going to have them or not, but they can cause problems. So
I think the worst enemy to peonies, honestly, when they're blooming, is the rain.
and wind, yeah,
Which is
our
really
spring
hard
storms.
when they are spring. They're spring
They
bloomers.
need that. They
and
need
we
that
have-
rain, and it blows them down.
Yeah. So, you do need to probably stake them or have them in a location where they're going to be a little bit protected from that wind, because unfortunately, as soon as those petals, open up and they're really pretty and we have a really heavy spring rain, then it knocks those petals off.
Exactly. And so they also, if they're not getting enough sun, they can be kind of weaker and kind of not hold themselves up as well too. So
The stems will be thinner.
yeah, they won't be as strong. Propagation, herbaceous and etope, they're going to be done by division.
Yep, you're just going to divide those eyes. Make sure you
Just
have
like we
3
talked
to
about,
5 eyes.
like your dahlias.
Yep,
anything like-
exactly.
tree peonies, those are done by grafting. Those are
yeah, those are
complicated.
really
And that's why
complicated.
they're expensive. I mean,
They are.
their tree peonies are very expensive usually. And everybody's like, why is it so expensive? It's like, well, a little more goes into taking care of that guy and propagating it as well. So
They'll last a long time, but they do take a long time to get propagated and then to get established and bloom. But they're worth it. So, the neat thing about peonies culturally is that they are kind of that symbolic of wealth, of honor, and of romance.
and you can see, yeah, they certainly have all three of those elements.
They do.
They're very rich looking. And we talked about they've been used in medicine, art, and cultural symbolism.
And did you know that they're actually the state flower of Indiana?
I actually did not know that. Did you? Once we started doing our research, I was like, whoa, I didn't
Yeah,
know.
that is interesting.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So,
That is. I don't know why Indiana picked them, but they picked a really good flower to be their state
yes,
flower.
they did. Yes, they did.
So, yeah. So I don't know that we have a whole lot else. I think we kind of hit all the bases of.
I think that's a good introduction to peonies. We
Yeah.
probably can do a deeper dive later on, maybe as we do more podcasts. But
Oh,
we
trust
wanted
me,
we wanted
next
to.
year?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We wanted to get this out because we were like, oh, our peonies are blooming, and Hope was like, we need to do
It's the
peonies. I was like, yes, it's a
time.
great idea. So
Yes, this is definitely the time of year to talk about peonies.
so yeah, just follow those tips. They will do great for you, and they'll last a long time. And you'll have rewards for decades to come.
Yes, enjoy them. Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners. Please subscribe or follow to get the newest episode updates. And please help us get the word out about our new podcast and dropping a rating or review. Or tell your friends.
Yes, please share the podcast. If you have any questions on landscape, gardening, or horticulture, please send them to gwtg@boonegardener.com. That's Gardening with the Gardeners. And don't forget, Gardener has an I.
Yes, that's GARDINER. Gardening with the Gardeners.
Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners. We'll see you next time.
Bye.